Welcome one and all. Step right up and get your tickets for another moment in gaming history.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome officially to the channel. This is a series where I go into various different moments in video game history, and today I want to talk about another thing that we often take for granted in the modern era of gaming. And that's memory storage. It sounds silly, but being able to save your game hasn't always been a thing, and there's been multiple solutions. So today I want to talk about the memory card, the first console to use it, and how games got around it before that invention, and what it's done for the medium as a whole. So if you have some time, sit back and hang out for a while as we go into the humble memory card. Now, many of us recall this, but some of you may not. Games haven't always had the ability to save. Many simply had you running through the game trying to complete it in a single setting, with either a high score being the only goal, or something more advanced like Castlevania that would charge the player with being good enough to finish the game in one setting. This often was hard at first, but more approachable the more familiar with the enemy placement, character movement, and patterns of the bosses, turning what would be 20 hours of practice into a 20-minute run of a particular favorite. Some games, though, the developer felt were a little too frustrating or long to do in a single setting, so they began looking for ways to allow players to pick up where they left off. But how do you do that with a console that has no long-term memory and nothing built in the cartridge to do it? Well, one way was passcodes. Anything from dots placed on a grid all the way to passwords like Engage Ridley Motherfucker. If you were lucky enough, you might pick up a game like Zelda that had a battery backup that could actually save on the cartridge itself. This problem ironically actually got harder rather than easier as consoles advanced. Consoles started to use CDs as the primary medium, and this removed one of the earliest options of onboard storage. And memory was still a bit too expensive to add into the cost of the console and sell it at the margin they wanted. So, one of the solutions was the humble memory card. Now, most of us think this was first introduced with the original PlayStation, and that's close, but not quite as accurate as you think. You see, this goes back a bit further than that, all the way back to 1990. And some of you may already guess this, the Neo Geo. Yeah, that's right. You see, the Neo Geo was effectively a home console that could do what no other home console could do at the time, in a few ways. The first was it could exactly replicate the arcade experience at home. And it wasn't exactly cheap either about how it did this. The home console cost around $600 retail, and the cartridges $200 per cartridge, because they were effectively arcade boards in a cartridge format. It also had some clever ways of dealing with longer games and carrying progress around with the Neo Geo memory card. This allowed you to save your progress in any Neo Geo game, be it at home or even in the arcade. This was at its core a 8-bit wide 2 kilobyte card, which isn't much by today's standards, but was enough to allow the user to take their progress back and forth from SNK's arcade machines to their home console and back again, which is pretty impressive in its own right. Now, the Neo Geo itself was more of an arcade console, and as such didn't really flex too much as far as the flexibility of the memory card. That wouldn't really happen until later. Sony would take the next early step in this, bringing out the PlayStation, a fully CD-based console that would use memory cards slotted in the front to store data, which allowed for regular saves in video games. This allowed CD games to save much like how Zelda and later cart-based games could save on the actual cartridge. It allowed even these games to be longer and more expansive than ever before, particularly since CDs could store even more data than cartridges. Even the N64 would actually make use of it for save space on the carts to allow larger games on the main cartridge itself and to allow the storage to be separate on the memory card. This became the way to store game data until around 2002, when the original Xbox would actually come out and shake up the storage medium again by having an internal hard drive. In that respect, it's easy to say that the early entry into the memory card medium by Neo Geo paved the way for even larger and more expansive games than anyone had seen before. And without this leap, it likely would have taken much longer to come out to the same place. However, what do you guys think of this one? Did any of you ever own the Neo Geo, and how much did you actually use the memory card to go back and forth? Do you agree with me that this was a big step in gaming history? Let me know in the comments. However, for now, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. If I could ask you for one more favor, please leave this video a like. And if you haven't, consider subscribing. It really helps my channel out a lot. Until next time though, have a great rest of your day, and happy gaming.